Welcome to the third lesson of programming with C++. In today's video, we are going to talk about variables and data types. Now you must be wondering why I am at a buffet today. That's because I will explain what variable data type and variable name is with an analogy.
So you were at a buffet and you were very hungry in the beginning. Without exploring all the different options that they have in the buffet, you just take whatever you have in the beginning on your plate. And all those foods are healthy food. So you take salads and things like that on your plate. Now if someone looks at your plate, they will call your plate a healthy plate. So your plate will get a name, a healthy plate. But as you move forward in the buffet, you see some better options. Better as in the options that we all like, which are not so healthy, but they taste better. Those are all the tasty options. So what do you do at that point? You throw away all the food that you already had on your plate and take those tastier options. So if someone looks at your plate at this point, they will call your plate a tasty plate. So you can see based on the type of food that you have on your plate, the name of your plate is changing. So in computer science or in a programming language like in C++, the plate where you have your food, where you are taking in the food, that plate is the variable or the memory block where you are storing data. Your food is the data that you are storing. Based on the type of food, your plate is getting a new name. So the type of food is your data type that tells everyone, okay, this plate is holding all healthy foods. So the data type of this plate is healthy plate, or this plate is holding all tastier kinds of foods. So the data type of this plate is tasty food. So the type of food is the data type. And this name that is varying every time, this can be your variable name. You can give any name to your variable that you want. But when you are creating a variable, you are giving only one name. Later on, you can use the same memory block to give another variable name and create another variable. But for that, you will have to free the memory first. This process of freeing the memory is called garbage collection. If you remember, when you took new food into the plate, you yourself threw away all the food that you already had on your plate. That process is called garbage collection. And in C++, there is no system of automatic garbage collection like you have in advanced programming languages like Java or Python. Here, you will have to do manual garbage collection using the keyword called free. You will have to free the memory location that you have been holding for storing some data by yourself, and then you can reuse that same memory location. Think of algebra. What we do in algebra, we just take a variable like this, or we can take some alphabet like this, x, and we can assign some value to that x. So if we just write this line, x is equal to 10 in algebra, that means x will be treated as 10 in this particular problem. So wherever you put x in your problem, x will get the value 10. You can just write an expression like this, y is equal to 2x squared plus 3x minus 5, and you can replace the value of x by 10 like this. So you are just replacing the value of x by 10, and this is how you can calculate the value of y. So you can just get the value of y by replacing the value of x by 10. In programming, the same thing can happen, and there you will treat x and y as variables because they can store values. Variable can store values and let us save data so that we can reuse it later on. Once you store some value into the variable, you can use that variable anywhere in your program without writing the value that you are putting into it every time. Okay, like algebra, where you just write x is equal to 5, here you can just think like x is holding the value 5 in case of your programming language. Rather than just thinking it as equal to, think it like this, x is holding the value 5. Think of x like a box, and inside that box, you are just putting the value 5. Okay. And once you assign a value, it stays there until it is changed again by you. Because you are the programmer, you have control over the variables. You can change the values if you want anywhere in your program. But if you are not changing the values, it will keep holding the same value that you initially had in that variable. So it is persistent. And there are certain naming rules. When you are creating a variable, you have to follow those naming rules to give a variable name. These variable names are also called identifiers. I will talk about those rules in the next slides. Before that, let's see how we can create a variable in C++, how we can declare a variable and store value into it. In C++, this is one line of C++ code in which you can create a variable and store some value into it. What is the variable name here? This x is the variable name that I have given to the variable. It is also called the identifier. This equal sign is not the same equal sign as you have in your algebra. This equal sign means assignment operator. This assigns some value into the variable. Okay, you can read it like this, that x gets the value 9, or this assignment operator puts the value 9 into x. Now 9, this is the value that you are putting into this identifier x, or the variable x. And before all this, you will have to add another thing, that is the data type. So when you are creating a variable in C++, you will have to specify the data type. What type of data you are going to store into that variable. That you will have to specify in the beginning. Then you can store values into that variable. So that's the first step. This step is called variable declaration. You have to specify the data type, then the identifier name. Then you can just end the line with a semicolon. That is also a perfect C++ line of code. But if you want to assign some value into that variable, then you will have to extend it with this assignment operator and the value that you want to put into this variable x. So let's see how we declare a variable in C++. Here I have opened Visual Studio, and suppose I am trying to declare an integer type of variable. So first I will have to write the data type, that is int, then the variable name. Let me name this variable as var, and I am assigning some value, say 10, into it. This is one way you can create a variable or declare and assign value to the variable at the same time. Let me add that as comment. Variable declaration as well as value assignment. This is one way of doing it. Type 1 of variable declaration and value assignment. You add comments like this. There's another way you can declare variable and add value to it like this. Int var2. You just write this. This is type 2 of variable declaration only. But if you want to assign some value to the variable, you can do that later on in your program like this. This is value assignment only. Okay. So both the ways are completely acceptable. You can either create the variable and assign value in the same line, or you can create a variable and assign value later on in the program. But it is always a good practice, if you are not assigning some value to it in the beginning, just assign it a value 0. Do you want to know why? Let's see what will happen if I do not assign any value to var2 and I still try to print it. Or let me have this. Let me have this here, and let me try to print var2 like this. Cout var2 is equal to, this is uninitialized variable, and I will try to print this. See, I'm getting errors. There are build errors. And even my editor was telling me that there is something wrong. You are trying to print the value of var2, which is an empty variable. It does not hold anything, and you were trying to print the value of it. It is good that Visual Studio is giving you this error. But if you are using Linux, sometimes it will just give you some random value. That is called a garbage. So to avoid those things, always assign the value 0 in the beginning if you are not assigning a value to it. So this is not allowed. I will just remove this. So you can see here, the assignment operator, this equal sign, is not exactly equal to. This stores value into the variable. And we read this line as var2 gets the value 20. And keep this in mind, that C++ always evaluates any expression like this from the right to the left. So first it checks what is the value that you are trying to assign. It first reads the value and then it reads the assignment operator. Okay, you are trying to assign this, and then it will assign the value back to the variable where you are trying to assign it. So if you have something like this, 20 plus 5, first it will calculate what is 20 plus 5. It will do the calculation and then it will store the value 25 into the variable. So if I try to print var2 here, it will just do this. It will print 25 because it will do the calculation first and then it will assign the value and finally it will print it. Here I have not used using namespace std that I can use here, and then I will not have to use std everywhere. I can just remove these stds here. Okay, now let's talk about the variable naming rules. These things I have already discussed. There are certain rules that you need to follow while you are creating a variable in C++. Those are the variable naming rules that you must follow while giving a name to your variable. As I told you, when you are creating a variable, you can give any name that you want to your variable. These are the rules that you must follow. So the first rule is that your variable name must start with a letter or an underscore. It should never start with a digit. But once you start with a letter or an underscore, you can use other letters, digits, or underscores, or anything that you want. That means you can have a variable name like this, var2. This is completely acceptable. But if you try to give a variable name like this to var, see, the editor itself is telling me that this is not acceptable. Even if I initialize this, it is giving me a wrong message for the initialization part. If I try to initialize this, see, it is still red. It is telling me expected an identifier because it is not considering this as the identifier. I wanted tovar to be the identifier, but it is not considering it as the identifier because that is not an acceptable variable name. So you cannot do something like this. Also, these variable names are very much case sensitive. If you write total like this, and when you are using that variable, if you write it like this, they will be treated differently and they will not be considered as the same variable. Let's look at one example to understand this. Let me remove all these things here. Suppose I have a variable name called total and I have 100 in it. Okay, so later on, I want to add something to this total. Suppose I want to do this. Total equals to total plus 50. Okay, if I just do this, see, it is giving me red. It is telling me total is undefined. That's because this total and this total is not the same. So it is not being able to recognize it. Again, if I just write int here like this, so I already have a total and I'm writing this here, what do you think will happen if I print cout? Which total will be printed? Because these two are two different variables. I'm using this declaration part twice. So two variables are getting created. Let me run this. Okay, it is good that it is giving me some build error. What is the error? Let's try to see. Oh, it gave me error and let me see what is happening. No, total redefinition. So that's why it is telling me that I have multiple definition as well as multiple initialization of total. I have already total defined here and I'm trying to redefine it here. So it is giving me an error. So it's good that the modern IDEs are giving errors for these cases as well. But before the compiler was not able to give error messages for these kinds of mistakes. So it used to create a lot of confusion.